Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely flip the way you think about wealth. We typically think of money as just numbers, right? Spreadsheets, cold hard math, basically an equation that just needs to be solved. But the truth is, money is a deeply human, behavioral phenomenon. We are incredibly complicated creatures, and financial success isn't really about how much you know, it's entirely about how you behave.
I want you to reconsider where real financial decisions actually happen. Think about it for a second. They aren't happening on a calculator, and they definitely aren't happening on some perfectly optimized spreadsheet. They happen around the dinner table. They're driven by ego, pride, fear, and our own personal histories. It's this messy dance between the cold arithmetic of a bank account and the reality of human nature.
Okay, let's dive into this. 1. The hidden psychology of money. 2. Time, luck, and risk. 3. The power of tail events. 4. The price of investing. And 5. Richness versus true wealth.
Section 1. The hidden psychology of money.
So what we're really talking about here is your financial DNA and how your personal history uniquely dictates your worldview. We all come from completely different generations and economic environments, and those formative years just hardwire our attitudes toward money. Like, if you were born in 1950, you saw the stock market completely stagnate in your teens and 20s. That probably left you with a pretty negative view of investing. But if you were born in 1970, you witness a tenfold increase in the S&P 500 during those exact same formative years, making you super optimistic. If you grew up in the 60s, you're terrified of inflation. If you grew up in the 90s, you barely even know what inflation is. The specific decade you were born in literally creates the lens through which you view every single financial decision you make.
And because of these wildly differing realities, people do some crazy things with money. But here's the thing, no one is actually crazy. We all justify our financial decisions based on the mental model of the world we've built for ourselves. Someone else's financial choice might look absolutely insane to you, but to them, in that exact moment, based on their lived experience, it makes perfect sense.
Section 2. Time, luck, and risk. These are the counterintuitive forces that actually build fortunes, and they're often operating entirely behind the scenes. $81.5 billion. Warren Buffett is universally considered the greatest investor of all time, right? With a net worth of around $84.5 billion. But here is the massive secret. $81.5 billion of that fortune was earned strictly after he reached his mid-60s. Let that sink in for a minute. His phenomenal wealth isn't just because he's a great investor, it's because he's been a great investor since he was a literal child, harnessing the extreme counterintuitive power of time and compounding.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is when you compare Warren Buffett directly to hedge fund manager Jim Simons, Simons is blowing Buffett out of the water. We're talking 66% annually compared to Buffett's 22%. Yet, Simons' net worth is a fraction of Buffett's, sitting at about $21 billion. How is that even possible? Well, because Simons didn't find his investing stride until he was 50 years old. He simply had less than half the time to let his money compound. Buffett has more wealth simply because he started earlier.
And this brilliantly illustrates the other two massive hidden factors, luck and risk. Back in 1968, there were 300 million high school-age people in the world. Only 300 of them attended Lakeside High in Seattle, which happened to be the only school in the world with a leased teletype computer. Bill Gates was one of those kids. That is a literal 1 in a million stroke of luck that gave him an unmatched head start. But what isn't talked about nearly as much is his equally brilliant friend, Kent Evans, who shared that exact same vision. Tragically, Kent lost his life in a mountaineering accident before graduation. That's a 1 in a million encounter with risk. Luck and risk are siblings. They are these totally unpredictable external factors that deeply shape our outcomes, reminding us that we really need to approach success with a healthy dose of humility.
Section 3. The power of tail events. It turns out a tiny fraction of our actions usually dictates the vast majority of our financial results. Take Heinz Berggruen, one of the greatest art dealers ever. His secret? He just bought massive quantities of art. 99% of it turned out to be of practically zero value, but he held on for the 1% that turned out to be a Picasso. Or look at Amazon. The colossal success of Amazon Prime and Amazon Web Services completely eclipsed massive, incredibly costly failures like the Amazon Fire Phone. Extreme success comes from being wrong most of the time, but having the patience to hold on for those massive outliers.
These outliers are called tail events, and honestly, it's incredibly unintuitive because these events naturally hide the failures from us. Think of a stand-up comedian. When you watch their flawless Netflix special, you're seeing a tail event, the 1% of jokes that actually landed perfectly. What you aren't seeing is the 99% of terrible, awkward jokes they absolutely bombed with in tiny clubs across the country to get there. In investing and in business, tails drive everything. You are going to be wrong a lot, and you know what? That is perfectly okay.
Section 4. The price of investing.
So there is absolutely no golden escalator to the top of the financial mountain. Getting returns in the stock market is honestly exactly like buying a car. You basically have three choices. You can buy a new car, paying a premium price for the goal of a 12% return. You can buy a used car, which is cheaper and a lot safer, yielding maybe a 4% return. Or you can try to steal the car. Now, in the real world, almost no one tries to steal a car because the consequences are severe. But in the stock market, people try to steal the car all the time. They try to dodge volatility, timing the market to jump in right before booms and bail out right before dips, basically trying to get something for nothing without paying the price.
So the crucial point is this. The price of investing is not actually paid in dollars and cents. It is paid in the emotion of volatility, fear, and risk. When the market suddenly drops 40%, that gut-wrenching trauma, that is the admission fee. If you view that volatility as a fine for doing something wrong, you're going to be stressed out constantly, and you'll eventually just quit. You absolutely have to view it as a necessary admission fee to get those sweet, long-term returns.
Paying that fee is super hard, though, because as humans, we naturally lean toward pessimism. Overnight tragedies, like a sudden market crash, a plane crash, a massive natural disaster, they're loud, they're sudden, and they instantly grab our attention. But slow miracles, like medicine gradually saving 500,000 lives a year, or an incremental 140% compound gain in the market over 6 years, those are quiet, and they largely go completely unnoticed. We have to consciously remind ourselves that while the bad stuff happens fast, the really good things take time.
Section 5. Richness versus true wealth.
All right, it's time to challenge everything we think we know about success. There is this massive illusion in our society. We see a Lamborghini, we see huge diamond rings, and we instantly say, wow, that person is wealthy. But actually, that's not wealth. That's just being rich. Richness is current income. It's loud, it's visible. But true wealth is actually what you don't see. True wealth is the financial assets you haven't spent yet. It's the quiet self-control to decline the first-class upgrade. The only way to actually become wealthy is to literally not spend the money that you have.
And why do we want to build this invisible wealth in the first place? Well, because the absolutely highest dividend money pays is the ability to control your own time. The ultimate purpose of accumulating wealth isn't just to buy more stuff. It's to give yourself the freedom to wake up every single morning and say, I can do whatever I want today, with whoever I want, for exactly as long as I want. Having that control over your life is actually the most dependable predictor of human happiness.
But to get there, you have to avoid the ultimate trap, the hedonic treadmill. This is the incredibly dangerous tendency to just constantly move the goalposts forward. You make $1 million, and suddenly you want 10. You make 10, you want 100. Think of people like Bernie Madoff, or Raj Rajaratnam and Anil Gupta. These were men who had hundreds of millions of dollars, giving them absolute ultimate freedom, yet they resorted to crime just to get more. They simply never stepped off the treadmill, and their endless pursuit entirely ruined them.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave a question echoing in your mind. Take a hard look at your own financial journey, your own stress, your own desires, and ask yourself honestly, when will your pursuit of wealth finally be enough? Because if you don't clearly define what enough is for yourself, the math will never, ever matter. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.